Okay, we're going to go ahead and get started today. My name is TSgt Kaloides, and I am stationed at Nellis Air Force Base and put together a virtual PDC for everybody about all the different jobs that we can do in the 411 career field. If this is your first session, welcome. If not, welcome back. Today, we're going to be having Tech Sergeant Tierra Ware at Nellis Air Force Base and Tech Sergeant Sierra Lewis at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, who are both Phase 2 instructors who are going to tell us the details of that job, how to apply, and all that. So I'll go ahead and hand it off to you. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Good evening, everyone. I am Tech Sergeant Tierra Ware, currently stationed at Nellis Air Force Base as the SSA Course Supervisor. Past assignments include Keesler as my first duty station, Incirlik, Langley, and currently Nellis Air Force Base, which I have been stationed here for almost 4 years in August. Sergeant Lewis, would you like to introduce yourself before we hop into the questions?
Sure. So, hi everyone. My name's Tech Sergeant Sierra Lewis. I apologize you can't see me. A little bit of difficulty with my video. So I am also a SSA Phase 2 Course Supervisor at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, and I'm entire enlistment here so far, so almost 8 years. Super excited to do this and answer questions.
Okay, so we will go ahead and hop into some questions. So first of all, for those of you who may be wondering, what is a SSA Phase 2 Course Supervisor? We are basically the subject matter experts whom facilitate the hands-on training for our Phase 2 students. After completing Phase 1 and prior to heading off to their gaining units. Although you may be assigned additional duties, you should not be assigned as an NCOIC or a superintendent, and the additional duties that you may be assigned, you should not be overtasked because your main focus is making sure that you facilitate the training for our Phase 2 students. Their job is to directly supervise and train the students. Requirements for the job: at a minimum, you must be a staff sergeant. You also must hold a 7 skill level. You must have your CCAF or be very close within very minimum classes with having your CCAF, as well as you must attend POI, which is a Principles of Instructions course, which basically teaches you how to give lectures, and it gives you a big dose of public speaking. One thing that kind of gets misconstrued, we're actually not instructors. Like, we don't get to wear the cool instructor badges like our Phase 1 instructors. We are course supervisors. That's one thing that I would like to clear up. Although it would be awesome to get to wear the cool instructor badges, but we're not actually instructors. We are course supervisors. And the reason that we do not get to wear the instructor badges is because we don't conduct any didactic training. It is all hands-on performance. Currently, certification is not required for the job, but it is highly encouraged that you do have your certification or you do attain your certification. And upon being assigned the position, you will receive a T prefix in the UMD document, which basically makes you less vulnerable for deployments, as well as you will be coded a code 55, which will kind of lock you in for a 3-year tour. I've been doing the job for about 2 years now, and I really enjoy it. I enjoy getting to meet all the different airmen that are just coming into career field. And if I can make the smallest impact on their career first coming in, I take responsibility in actually doing that. As far as workload and hours, we do follow and Sergeant Lewis, please chime in if I'm missing anything. I am a little nervous because public speaking is my forte. So if I'm missing any information, please feel free to chime in with any information that I may be missing or skipping over.
Sure will. You're doing great.
As far as the workload, we do follow the workload of the OR, 8-hour shifts, 0650 to 1530. The students are required to complete a mandatory of 256 training hours. which is basically broken up into 5 blocks of training. The first block of training is orientation and introduction to the clinical experience, where the students receive a walkthrough of the hospital and just what to expect within the 6 weeks of training that they will be attending phase 2. Block 2 consists of SPD, where the students will spend a total of 48 hours in SPD, basically learning the different processes that are associated with SPD. Block 3 is 1 day, 8 hours, which consists of patient transport, where the students are able to learn the processes that are included with pre-op and basically the steps for getting the patient ready for surgery and also transporting the patient back and forth to the OR. Block 4 is their circulating block of training, which they will be assigned to a OR nurse as their preceptor, where they're basically being trained on all the duties that are associated with circulating, to include opening up sterile supplies, assisting the surgical team with opening up surgical instruments, getting supplies, getting to make sure the patient is ready for surgery, assisting anesthesia, just all the duties that are associated with circulating. And then block 5, which consists of 18 days where the students are basically scrubbing various surgical specialties. Did I miss anything so far, Sergeant Lewis?
No, the only thing I wanted to add, when they're circulating, they do some like skin preps and Foley's as well, and that's kind of their first like major hands-on experience with the patient, I feel like. And you kind of always see like an eye-open, it's almost like an eye-open experience, like this is a real patient, like we're really doing this, so that's always really cool to see.
One question, just seeing off in our chat here off to the side, Senior Master Sergeant Ahar asks, how are you hired, selected for the position? Typically, you are hired in-house. If you express an interest on doing the phase 2 program, you would speak to your leadership. And if the position is not filled in-house, then it will go on AMS, and then it will be opened up into for everyone to be able to apply for the job.
Yes, that's how I got hired in as well. Prior to being the course supervisor, I was the alternate CS, so I kind of had the experience, which made the transition a little bit smoother. But I have seen other bases hire from AMS, and instructors come into those bases, and it's worked out great for them as well.
Hello?
I think Sergeant Ware froze.
I think she did too. I froze for just a second too. Sergeant Ware, are you still there?
I'm having my issues with internet.
There we go.
There we go. So
You're
just
back.
really quick, if anybody has any questions and you can't, or you don't know how to find the chat bar, if you're on your computer and you don't see chat, just kind of hover over the bottom of your Zoom screen and you'll see the chat. You can just click on that and it'll pop up and just send your message, and they'll be able to see your message. Okay, go ahead.
So a question I feel like we get a lot is, what do you like and dislike about the job? Like, this seems like a really awesome job. Are there, pros and cons? So I think, in my opinion, and Sergeant Ware, feel free to add in, the job is rewarding in itself. You see these new technicians come in. This is their first big experience with patients and hands-on. And one, you're kind of like one of the first people they're going to meet, besides obviously their MTI and their phase 1 instructors, but you are one of the first role models within their career. So setting that up and being that role model is huge. And what we always see is, like, in the beginning, it seems everyone's a little nervous, a little scared, because this is real life. But over the 6.5 weeks, or about 6 weeks that they're here, you see like this confidence grow, and it's so good to see, because you see them starting out kind of like almost scared to even stand near the OR table, and by the end they're running things and they're taking the reins. So it's always good to see that that growth while they're here, and like just know that, one, you were a part of it, but two, like, they're going to be something bigger. And before it's over here in a year or two, you're going to see them making rank and moving up in the ranks and pretty sure replacing you. So it's just a major impact, I think. And that's, for me, the best part about it.
I think for me, there's not really a lot of cons that I have for the job. As Sergeant Lewis, I do take pride in being that first, person that they see when they're coming into one of the first leaders that they come in contact with first entering the career field. As well as I like the opportunity to mentor when I have the time, when I have the opportunity to. And also, like, taking this job, it kind of forces you to get outside of your comfort zone. Because as we all know, as we move up in the ranks, if you're one to kind of shy away from different opportunities, or if you're one to shy away from challenges, then you will notice that your peers will start to pass you, and you would notice that a lot of opportunities that you may not be that first pick because you're not putting yourself out there. So those are some of the lessons that I try to interact or teach with the students as well. Another question that we received: what do you do to keep engaged with the normal ops of the operating room? I would say for myself, due to the fact when you take the position as a Phase 2 course supervisor, you may or may not be assigned to the OR. I do know that there are some sites where they're actually attached to the OR, but currently at Nellis, I was PCA to the Education and Training Department. So it kind of takes you off from like morning operations and even like the afternoon huddles and things like that. So one thing that I like to do to keep, abreast on the different policies and things that are coming about within the OR is attending training day, where you are with the OR staff, going over different in-services and things like that, and also including your students so that they have an idea of what to expect once they make it to their gaining units as well. What about you, Sergeant Lewis?
So at Right Pat, we've been kind of lucky. We are still up in the OR, so my office stays up there, and we interact daily with them. Honestly, even I don't technically fall under the OR flight, but it still feels like that because I'm there through everything. So that's been a blessing in disguise. It's nice to be right there. So I'm still involved in like morning huddles with everyone. I'm still involved in anything that's changing and going on. I'm filled in, so it's been great to have that.
Okay. Another question that we received: do you as an instructor, along with the students, still fall under AATC? So no, we do not fall under AATC. You fall under the base that you're assigned to, but the students still fall under AATC.
Yes, I think we got another question in there. How do you deal with students that struggle to meet requirements for passing curriculum? So it is, we get a broad mixture of students. Some are very confident and right on it, and they grasp it quick, and some don't. Everyone trains at a different level, which is perfectly fine. I tell all my students, if they would have known me as a Phase 2 student, I would be labeled the worst Phase 2 student they've ever known. So, but you can overcome that and you can grow. So for those who are struggling, we work with them. We do special individualized assistance and one-on-ones, because sometimes all it takes is some one-on-one time with them to bring down their fears and their anxiety. And as soon as that's out the door, they start grasping it. And if not, you just keep practicing. I've never been in the instance where we had to, disenroll someone from the program at this level in Phase 2, because I feel like we always are able to correct it prior to that. And a lot of it is how much work you're putting in and how much you're doing to assist them to grasp those concepts. Because it may be something like gloving or gowning that they're just not understanding, but the more you practice, they will grasp it. They will. I honestly do think a lot of it is nerves. How about you, Sergeant Ware?
Since doing the Phase 2 program, I have yet to have any students to fail. A lot of the students that come, they're pretty knowledgeable. As long as they're engaged or able to identify areas where they're weak at, I think they'll be just fine. But like Sergeant Lewis said, for students that are possibly failing or may not feel as confident in certain tasks, we do what is called SIA, where it's one-on-one training with you and the student to basically give them that one-on-one training so that they're able to grasp the skills that they need to feel proficient in that task. Another question that we received, do you deal with Exodus? Please explain that process. So we do deal with Exodus. If we happen to have a class during that time, it is coordinated through LeaveWeb. We have the students log into their LeaveWeb account to see how many days that they have. And if I could be wrong, but I want to say if they do not have enough days, that is the only time where they're allowed to go into the negative.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So basically the students would put in Exodus. I want to say, I could be wrong, Sergeant Lewis, it's like 23 days that they receive for Exodus.
I feel like it's about that. It is a few weeks normally that they have.
Yes.
Yeah,
So
20
are allowed
23 days.
Okay. We do get the days that they're allowed to be on Exodus. Those days come directly from the 59th. And if students, they're allowed to go home. That is one of the only times that they're allowed to fly on leave. They're allowed to go home. And in unfortunate events where we have students who do not take the Exodus time, they are to either, they are required to stay on base, and then they would have to report in each day that they're supposed to be out for Exodus.
Yes. So the next question, as the course supervisor, are you responsible of getting the students in process into the base, dorms, finance, etc., and assist with passports? So we do deal with that, all those things. When they get here, prior to them arriving, we set up their dorm rooms. We normally know they're coming a good amount. I feel like normally a month or 3 weeks ahead of time is about the average time that we are aware that they're going to be coming to us. So we're able to get them all set up for a dorm room. We in-process them through a couple different clinics, admissions, public health, finance. They do that when they get to their first duty station, but we do pay attention. That's one of my biggest briefs when they arrive. Make sure you know what you're getting paid. Like, if it looks off, please let me know and we will work at it together, because that's always a thing with going to a different base. Even in training, it seems like pay is always an issue a lot of times. But normally we get it worked out, no problem. And then if they're going overseas, we set up their tickets or any training that they need. Most of the training that they need, they're going to get before they come to us anyway. So at phase 1, they're going to make sure they have that before we receive them at phase 2. Mainly we set up plane tickets and then anything to do. If sometimes order amendments, I've had to deal with that a couple times, but majority of it's just plane tickets and travel stuff.
Another question that we have, how do you deal with student status and permanent party? Upon arrival, first day of orientation, students are briefed on their responsibilities and what is expected for them as a student, currently in student status. We go over professional, unprofessional relationships. They're well aware of what to do, not to do. They're briefed on proper customs and courtesies, making sure that they're addressing the OR staff appropriately. They're also briefed on only associating with permanent party staff. Everything has to be professional, basically. They're not allowed to eat in the staff lounges. There are different places throughout the hospital that they're able to eat lunch, but they're basically briefed on what is expected for them currently in student status and the proper customs and courtesies to make sure that we're not crossing that line with permanent party. Unfortunately, they're not allowed to hang out with permanent party after hours. There's no exchanging of phone numbers, social media contacts, and the students are briefed on all of this. As well as they are also told that even after they graduate, it has to be at least 6 months before they can, basically wanting to add members on social media and things like that.
Yeah, and we also have our preceptor understanding. So we do some preceptor training. We have the DD Form 2982, which just goes over preceptor responsibilities and their understanding of, what the student status is and what they are allowed and not allowed to do. So I feel like we do a really good job of making this very clear at the beginning so that we don't have those issues. And then we constantly, just remind you are in student status. I understand that you might be the same rank as some of these other airmen, or, they might be friendly with you at work, but you cannot hang out outside of work. Like, it is professional relationships only. And I myself haven't had really any issues with that. So
I've had a few minor issues with that, but nothing that wasn't able to be, identified early on and corrected, and any other issues ever happened.
The next question we have are you required to do dorm inspections? How often? So at Wright Pat, we have communicated with our dorm MTLs, and they have asked us to do dorm inspections. Currently, we only do them about once, like, per class, unless we feel like we need to do them more. So we'll do our one, but the dorm MTLs will also do one before they're out processing to make sure everything's good to go. But that's another thing. We always tell them what your expectations at basic and phase 1 don't change at phase 2. Like, that is still an expectation to keep your things up to par. And they're aware that if they fail, there's consequences. So.
Another question that we received: do you lead PT? Currently, no, because of current conditions with COVID. We do not have PT. PT is on your own currently right now. But prior to COVID, the students, it's not mandatory that we do PT, and PT actually is not supposed to interfere with training hours. So we're not allowed to let the students, check out an hour early to attend PT. But I would make it mandatory that we do PT at least 3 times a week. And prior to COVID as well, I would do like a mock PT test with the students, just so that they have an idea of where they are physically, if there's some areas that they may need to improve on before heading to their primary duty station, or if there's some areas where, they're pretty okay. There's always room for improvement. But prior to COVID, I do make sure that the students are engaging in some type of physical activity at least 3 times a week.
Yeah, certain where we are the same here. We engage about 2 to 3 times a week. Normally, it's kind of self PT. We'll all go to the gym, and then we also do the mock as well. So if they pass the mock the first time, that's the only one we'll do while they're here. If they do fail that mock, we'll do another one just to see how far they progress and what else they can still work on.
Okay. Another question that we received: are CMRP requirements still applicable for phase 2 instructors? We are required to make sure that we are up to par on our skills, but currently, no, there are no CMRP requirements. And it is highly encouraged that you get in the OR as much as possible, whether you're scrubbing with your students or scrubbing on your own, to making sure that your skills are up to par.
So the next question, what training is required to be a phase 2 instructor, BIC, or any other training? So myself, I went to POI, Principles of Instructions, but I know the last instructor that did the job went to BIC instead. So I think either, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe either one you can do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, so that is a requirement upon taking the job. The next question, how do you manage transportation for the students if the dorms are far from the hospital? We at Wright Pat have a shuttle that runs from the dorms to the hospitals at 6:30 every morning, and then in the afternoons it comes and picks them up as well. Our dorms aren't very far, but they're definitely a little further than walking distance, so that shuttle is our go-to. And we also have a base taxi that's available to the students for official appointments if they have to go to finance or something like that. That's available for them as well. What about where you're at, Sergeant? Where?
As far as Nellis, I will say one of the issues that we get the most feedback from the students is transportation currently at Nellis. It is a struggle, but as a course supervisor, working with my counterparts, the 4-0 course supervisors, we're taking that feedback that we receive from the students and trying to make it as best as we can. Prior to COVID, there was a base shuttle that was being utilized to transport the students to and from the hospital. With everyone teleworking and things like that and being half manned, base transportation does not allow the base shuttle anymore, but they were generous enough to give the phase 2 students 2 vans that the students are allowed to drive. Currently right now, that transportation is working okay. But prior to COVID, transportation was one of the issues that we kind of struggle with the drivers of the base shuttle being late and having the students to wait. The students do have the option to walk from the hospital to Nellis. It is not that far, but sometimes the weather doesn't really permit students walking. But currently right now for transportation, we have 2 vans that are assigned specifically to the Base 2 program that the students utilize to transport each other back and forth to training each day.
So our next question, what happens after your time as a phase 2 instructor? Do you PCS or go back to the OR? Normally you find yourself back in the OR right after that. Some people do PCS to get another special duty, whatever comes your way, but normally you go back to the OR and fill a position.
That's correct.
I know another question that's been asked is, what can you do with this job? Like, once you do it, what can you take from it? So staying in, I mean, it's going to lead you to bigger opportunities. You have other instructor opportunities, or just, I feel like it really improves your supervisor skills as well because you deal with so much. And I always joke about it's kind of like being a first sergeant sometimes because all the issues that might come your way. But outside the military, having the instructor qualities and the education that you have, there's always those jobs on the outside where, maybe you go teach a course outside. I've seen them listed where at a college they're looking for a surgical tech instructor to teach or something like that. And there's also just the manager part of it. You do a lot of managing in this position. So you take a lot of experience from that and you can use that other places.
Just piggyback on what Sergeant Lewis said as us being kind of in a first sergeant's job. I agree wholeheartedly with that. One thing that I would like to make sure that everyone is aware when considering being a course supervisor, you are the student's number one point of contact. So although you're not on call, I kind of feel as though you're on call 24/7 because if there's any issues that come about within the students, you're supposed to be able to drop whatever you're doing and attend to that student. There have been times where the air conditioner went out in the dorms and I've had to take a fan to my students and things like that. So that is one thing that you must consider, that if there's issues, the students are having issues outside of duty hours, you are the number one contact taking care of those students and making sure, that they're taken care of.
Yes, that's very true. And another question was, is there things that have happened that you haven't expected? Have you dealt with things you haven't expected? The answer to that, and I'm pretty sure Sergeant Ware is going to agree, is yes. There are some unexpected things that come up. And like she was saying, you're kind of always on call in this position because you are their go-to. Like at this point, they're kind of all at this duty station they're at right now. So if they're having issues, they're going to come to you. And sometimes it's smaller issues that they don't understand, like, how to pay a bill. I've had a student not understand her cell phone bill or something like that. And they're like, I don't have anyone to explain this to me. Can you explain it to me? Or bigger issues, life happens sometimes. And I think that I can say I've had a few students cry in my office, and I'm sure Sergeant Ware is the same. We have open door policies. So sometimes these things get brought to you, but you're responsible for that student and you're their go-to. So you want to do everything you can to make sure that they get through what it is they're going through, but also that you give them the right tools and instructions to do that.
Exactly. Another question that we receive, what made you want to do the job? I would say for me personally, being a course supervisor is taking me like way out of my comfort zone. I've been in the military for 14 years, been doing the job for 2 years, and around that 9 to 10 year mark, I started, noticing that I was getting complacent, kind of waking up every day, going to work, going home, not really doing anything extra, not really making myself more marketable for promotions and awards and putting myself out there. So I would say for me, I would like to do this job to step outside of my comfort zone. I am not a fan of public speaking, but with this job, you do a lot of speaking, not only to the students. If there are DD visits that come around, phase 2 is a lot of times one of the departments that they visit, having to brief on what the program is about. As well as just having the smallest impact, on the airmen's first expression of the career field in the military. And if I can motivate them anyway to be higher or, to achieve goals greater than where I am right now, I take responsibility in doing that. What about you, Sergeant Lewis? Why were you interested in being a phase 2 course supervisor?
Yes, ma'am. I'm right on the same track with you. I wanted something different. I enjoy being in the OR, but I was ready to step out and kind of get out of my comfort zone as well. And I enjoy teaching. I just like to teach. So this was a major plus for me to be able to do that and share my experiences with students and teach them, tricks and things like that preceptors have taught me in the past that have helped me. So that was the biggest thing, getting out of my comfort zone and doing more and giving back. So let's see.
A question that we received, please explain the TDY you go on every year. What is it for? What do you learn from it? So the TDY that we go on every year is the SSA Symposium, where we head out to the 59th Training Squadron and we meet with the Phase 1 instructors to include all of the MASHCOM functionals are there as well as our course medal co-director is there as well. And it's just a chance for us to rally together if there's any type of new processes that are coming out within the career field. We also have a chance to tour the schoolhouse to see what the students' training is like at Phase 1. Am I missing anything, Sergeant Lewis?
No, yeah, so just to kind of learn about what happens before they come to us. And another thing is, we stay in constant contact with the Phase 1 instructors. They are our go-tos for basically everything with the program. So it's really nice to be able to meet up with them and get on the same page about stuff. And I feel like a lot of times we all have the same questions that get brought up there. So we get those answered, and it helps us to understand the students when they get to us, because we know what they learned in Phase 1. So we know exactly the processes they went through, the training, and the curriculum they went through, and those symposiums help us to understand that a lot more. But the biggest thing is just getting together with everyone, getting on the same page and talking, communicating, because there's been so many times I had to reach out to another Phase 2 instructor or a Phase 1 instructor in like needing help, and they were able to do that. So I think that's a huge benefit of those symposiums.
I agree. It's a great way for us to network and actually put faces to the names of the different course supervisors from all the different sites, because we communicate a lot through email, but it's always great to put, a face to the name.
So our next question, do you know where the students are PCSing to after they're finished with Phase 2? Yes. So when we get our initial roster, before we even get them, it shows where they're going to Phase 2 and then where they'll be stationed at after that. So we do know that all that information, which helps us too, because we reach out to the base they're going to get them a sponsor, to send orders, and we stay in contact with their base as far as when they leave us and they're traveling, so that us and their gaining base are on the same page with them. Let's see.
Another question that we receive, what do you like or dislike about the job? I really don't dislike anything about the job per se. I will say one thing to take into consideration if you're thinking about being a course supervisor, you do have to be a little bit more aware when you're taking leave or being out of the office to making sure that your alternate is available to be there for the students. So you have to be a little strategic with taking leave. Like you wouldn't want to take leave when you have a new class starting, or you wouldn't want to take leave when you have a class that's getting ready to graduate and head out. One thing I like about the job, although it seems like you're on call, I do like not having to pull, like the off shifts or working nights or weekends or just having to pull call period. With the job too, there are times where, let's say for instance, the students are in SPD, your schedule is a little bit flexible. So if you're interested in taking classes and things like that, you have the opportunity to do that. But of course it must not interfere with your duties as a course supervisor. Is there anything that you dislike about the job, Sergeant Lewis?
The only dislike is signing all that paperwork. So nothing serious, but those binders, we do a lot of hand signatures in those binders. Other than that, no. I can't think of anything I dislike about the job. I feel like I've enjoyed it thoroughly and I've got a lot out of it, so I can't complain at all. So I think we missed this question. Is this job what you expected it to be? Oh, that's a hard one. I
think for me, I honestly didn't know what to expect. I really didn't know what I was getting into. I attended my phase 2 was at Andrews 14 years ago. Don't really remember a whole lot or a whole lot of interactions with my course supervisor. I'm not saying that I didn't have any. So I just kind of went out on a limb, like, hey, I want to get out of the OR for a little bit. I want to, make myself a little bit more marketable, get out of my comfort zone, just want to try something different. So wasn't really what I expected because I didn't really know what to expect, honestly.
Right. Yeah. For me, I think that the previous course supervisor prior to me, if you guys know him, Tech Sergeant Brandon Willis, he set me up pretty well for the job and prepared me for what to expect. So that was nice. I think every job comes with like some things you didn't expect it here and there, but for the most part, I knew what I was getting into, and I knew what would be expected of me. So.
Another question that we received, how do you monitor the preceptors that you choose for the phase 2 students? So preceptors is not a requirement that every OR staff member is a preceptor. Preceptors is not a voluntold thing. So if we have trainers that are not interested in doing preceptors, we try not to force that because we want to make sure that the students are getting the best training experience. But preceptors that are either directed by their supervisor, they do receive preceptor training initially, and there's a refresher training that they receive once a year. As far as how they're training the students, when the students are required to have their preceptors conduct a preceptor evaluation form, where the students fill out how their training session went for the day for that preceptor. Those are mandatory. Those are for every new preceptor that they work with. That is our way to basically weed out the good from the bad preceptors, or, everyone is not fit to train, but that is our way. We have mandatory preceptor critiques, as well as our observance of the students and the preceptors training the students when we are out and about in the OR observing the students.
Yeah, we're the same way here. We know who takes precepting better than others. So we're the same. We don't force or anything. And what we see is a lot of times our preceptors, they enjoy it. Like they enjoy teaching. It gives them, something to really like do during the case. And we do preceptor awards here. So we let the students pick a preceptor at the end of their course. And that preceptor they pick is the one that they felt taught them the most and gave them a lot of advice throughout their time here. And then that preceptor who wins that award gets a comp day. So that's a little incentive for our preceptors as well. But for the preceptors, I think you're able to match your students with the preceptor. So sometimes they may not mesh as well as you would hope, but at the same time, sometimes that can be good because the Air Force has many different personalities, and this is kind of like their initial way of learning that. Like, there may not always be someone teaching you that is your favorite person, but they can still teach you what you need to know. So, but we definitely keep an eye on it, and we do the preceptor feedback forms as well to make sure that our students are getting the best out of it.
So now at this time, we are going to hand this session off to our CMS Sergeant Nahar. And if you have any further questions after this, please feel free to, this session will be posted on our Facebook page. Please feel free to post your questions there, and we will try to answer those questions as quickly as possible there as well.
Sergeant Nahar, you're unmuted, so feel free to start whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you. All right, well, thank you so much, Sergeant Lewis and Sergeant Ware, for the information that you shared with us, and also the career field. You'd be surprised of just the time that we've taken. Was that almost 40 minutes to discuss Phase 2 program. Back in the day when I came through, didn't have this platform with social media in order for us to be more educated of what is there, to do as far as being a Phase 2 course supervisor, or even a Phase 1 instructor, which was the previous session. This is just a neat way for us to share information that a lot of times you don't know. I mean, you don't remember how the program was, or you don't remember exactly the details of what these special duties or these positions they're out there in our career field. So again, it's a neat opportunity. Thank you, both of you, for taking the time to share your experiences and the things that you continue to deal with the Phase 2 program. Also, Sergeant Kaloides, thank you for putting this together a second time, and we'll continue to do this more and more. Just so you understand kind of the future of Phase 2. I know there's already been a discussion regarding standardizing the training. This is my second base that I've been to that we've had a Phase 2 site. I was at Keiser before I got to Nellis, and there are some challenges that come up with training, standardizing training. Nellis had for a little bit due to the COVID-19, where leadership felt that we wanted to not waste resources for the students. So we felt like we needed to pull back the training, and that obviously has an impact on the students because of the fact that there'll be some sort of training deficiency. We kind of had that issue with even a reservist member who wanted his unit to extend training because of the fact that during that period, it was a very challenging time for our technicians, our Phase 2 students, to get, that experience and that exposure of surgical cases. So with that being said, is the National Defense Authorization Act, which is for the most part, it came out 2017, that kind of mandated all the programs within METC to pursue accreditation. Right now, there isn't a requirement for us to be certified as surgical technicians, but that is the future for us. So how do we get our technicians to get their certification, and what is that going to look like for Phase 2? There's already was a site visit to MacDill, because MacDill Air Force Base would be the base that would support the potential Phase 2 site. So what we would eventually do is draw down some of the Phase 2 sites, which is a total of 5 of them, as we transition into a civilian program, just like the Navy does in San Antonio. Their program is very successful and very value added, that they get to scrub cases pretty much every single day in civilian hospitals, which we know is a challenge for us, depending on what the needs or what's going on with certain types of surgeons. Some of them feel like they don't want students in place And that's kind of what I dealt at Nellis too. For 3 to 4 months, we didn't have a orthopedic surgeon. So that obviously has an impact on the phase 2 student getting to their first duty station, not being able to even have the exposure for that particular specialty. So this is a plan in place to standardize the training, at least one civilian site. Hospitals that are being, being coordinated and getting approval through the Air Force, senior leadership level to make this happen. Currently is still being reviewed and approved, but just understand that we can't just pick up, the phase 2 site from one location to another base that currently doesn't have that site. So there's a lot of work that needs to be done. Again, as of right now, we're still waiting for further guidance and approval to kind of roll out with that new program. And how would that impact you guys as far as instructors that are in place now? It would come down to the planning phase. As we transitioning, shutting off, let's say one base at a time, we would probably potentially transition instructors into that new site, having them go through the same process, whether they do POI or BIC, and staging that particular site. So there's still a lot of work needs to be done, but that is the future of phase 2 site. For sure in Tampa, and there's talks of another location, but that still hasn't been finalized to figure out to not just have one, just because of the fact of the location. Tampa, Florida is it's in the path of any hurricane, so it would be very impactful for that one site to go down due to a hurricane or natural disaster, and then what do we do with the phase 2 students? So that's why we're considering another location, hopefully somewhere where there isn't natural disaster that comes every year, like it does in Florida in the South. So, but just want to again thank you guys. Y'all did an awesome job, and hopefully we'll continue this pattern with the sessions. And again, this is an opportunity for professional development for everything from an airman to a supervisor that is not familiar with the phase 2 site, who's never been stationed, and they can't remember what they went through when they went through phase 2. So this is definitely an opportunity for educating the airmen, but also supervisors to keep engaged of what those programs are out there and the opportunities, in case somebody says, yeah, I enjoy teaching, but I like my career field. So obviously there's 2 opportunities that we've already covered with the 2 sessions. So again, keep chiming into Zoom and ask questions if you're considering, or you may know somebody that may be wanting to do phase 1 or being a phase 2 course supervisor.
Okay. So that is going to finish out this session. Our next upcoming session is going to be July 6th to the 10th that week, and we're going to be doing shred. So there's going to be 3 different days, because shreds can, there might be a lot of questions, because I know that's one of the more broader things we can do in our career field. So there will be, on the 7th is going to be urology, and on the 8th of July will be ortho, and on the 9th of July will be ENT. And they're still going to be at 5 o'clock Central Time. So we're going to keep it the same with the time to make it easier. Again, this video will be downloaded as a YouTube video and then uploaded onto the 4-in-1 Facebook page. But also the reason we're doing YouTube is so that if you have members that don't have Facebook or aren't a part of the Facebook group, you can share it with those members as well. So please tell your friends, tell your coworkers that we are doing PDC. It's going to be every other week, and I'll keep sending those emails out. I'll keep updating the Facebook page. That way people still get the reminders. I know we get busy. Thank you again all for joining, and that closes out this session. Y'all have a great night.